What's up, guys? My name is Marc Steiner, and today marks the first ever episode of the Wide Angle Podcast, my new podcast. This was one of my New Year's resolutions, so I'm very excited that it's actually coming to fruition, and I hope you enjoy.
We can talk about, well, we're both photographers, so we can go around the realm of photography stuff.
That is probably the play.
And maybe, I don't know. Maybe we can talk about photography, and we can also talk about Instagram.
What's up, guys? My name is Marc Steiner, and today is the first episode of the Wide Angle Podcast, and my friend Corwin, who is a very talented photographer, is my first guest. So
and I am honored.
Today we're going to be talking about all sorts of things on the Wide Angle Podcast. First off, we're going to be talking about growing as a photographer, because we had this conversation off screen earlier.
It's true.
It is true. It's very interesting to see how Corwin's saying he was scrolling back on my feed about when I first started on Instagram with my photography account, and he was... You want to tell me about that?
I'm just mind blown because literally I'm just scrolling, right? Just, just doing my thing, and then I see the pictures, I think from like a few years ago, maybe.
I want to say, I think I started that Instagram account like a year and a half ago.
Okay, so yeah, it looked like, just normal portraits. I was like, okay, but I was mind blown by that because I'm looking at your stuff now, just the level of editing and the detail, and you go just the enhancements, just the enhancements on the face, and everything. It just looks just like the exponential growth. It was okay, it was great, and then it just went what in the heck? And then there was, I think, the one picture that definitely blew my mind was the one that you did with Rachel with the eyes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was the one that went hella viral.
Yeah, that was crazy.
And that's to this day one of my favorite photos of all time. I love that photo.
Yeah, it's definitely I can see you growing as a photographer for sure, just from what you used to do before, which it looked like. The normal senior pictures, prom
and
stuff.
it's just basic color editing, nothing crazy, and
a little
then
bit of dropping highlights,
a
little
just
contrast.
Basic, just oh my god, dude. I will say, I don't know if I posted these on my Instagram, but when I first started editing, I was just I wanted to pump the saturation on everything, and then I look back at that and I cringe so hard because it's oh my god, what was I thinking? It's just I just dragged the saturation slider to 100, and that was not getting text messages. I'm popular.
I'm not gonna look at your text messages.
And so it was just those early days, you were saying, very basic, more senior portrait-ish.
I don't mean
stuff.
it in a way to offend you.
No, I don't take offense at all. I'm looking back at that stuff as well, and I'm we all start somewhere, and that's the thing is people, I think too often, especially on Instagram, people see what a very talented photographer is creating, and they're like, oh my god, I wish I could be like him. But what they don't understand is how much time and effort and how they've grown as a photographer has that's why they're at that level now. And too many, I think too often people want to be at that level and they've never even picked up a camera, let alone start editing, let alone
they don't even
learning.
have Lightroom or anything.
Yeah, and it's just they want to be this amazing thing, but that's very unrealistic. You don't become Michael Jordan overnight. that's years and years and years of work.
Unless you watch Like Mike and then you just get the shoes. Boom.
That too. That'd be that too. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. As a kid, that was my dream. I was I want those shoes so bad.
It's just easier.
It is. It's life hack. But then
but in reality,
in reality that doesn't happen.
Yeah. No, but that's the thing. I did notice that with you, because you've definitely grown from when I think even when we first started following each other.
I'd say so. Yeah, I'd say I'd gotten more comfortable adding elements in. That's something I didn't used to do. I started doing more skin retouching and doing stuff like that to make the person look as good as they possibly could. But I still kept everything very realistic. Not otherworldly fantasy. And then I started getting into what makes this image more interesting. How do I add depth? What do people want to see that when they're scrolling through the Instagram feed, they're going to be they're going to stop on my photo for a second and be like, oh, this is actually cool.
Yeah.
Because you're competing with everyone else on Instagram.
Yeah. You got to make yourself as unique as possible.
Exactly. Like when someone's scrolling through the feed, you got to be like, oh, that's worth a like, you know? Like that just stopped my eye. And that's something that your photos do every time. That's one of the things, like, why I loved, like, when I first followed you, I was just like, dude, this guy, like, every time I scroll through my feed, I have to stop, I have to comment, like, this is so good, and it just makes me feel happy inside, like, these, like, dreamy vibes, we get that, I just love that, and then you were like, hey, who wants to do a shoot? And I was like, me.
I remember that too.
And that was like when the bromance officially started.
I think there was that time though, because there was a meetup that you were hosting. I think it was in February of last year.
Okay.
I think you invited me to the meetup, but I ended up canceling.
Yes.
So that I missed out on like 4 months of friendship. Because I remember that, because I felt bad. Yeah. But I wanted to hang out. But I just didn't know how to, like, you know, like, talk to you or anything.
No, exactly.
I'm a little on the, I don't know.
You're a little bit more on the, like, the introverted, shy side. But then, like, as we get to, like, become friends, then you're very comfortable. Yeah. And that's something I've found that, like, most creative people are, especially photographers, are mostly introverted. Yeah. And even me, like, I would consider myself an ambivert. I wouldn't, like, consider myself an extrovert. I can turn it on and off when I need to.
That's awesome.
But I prefer not having to deal with a lot of social things. Like when I'm hosting a meetup, I love it because I get to be surrounded by amazing people. I get to introduce myself. But then the next day, I'm just like so drained. I'm like, that was really fun, and I loved all that social interaction. But I just need to like, it's just like I need to recharge and be by myself because I love everyone, but I also like sitting in my room being alone. You know?
Yeah. No. So I understand that for sure.
Yeah, and that I think. That's a really interesting thing, you know, like, because we're all introverted, we have to work that extra mile to do our job, which does require quite a bit of social interaction. And I will say that, like, usually the more successful photographers, at least in business, are more outgoing because they're able to make those connections. They're able to network. They're able to talk to people.
Yeah.
But just being a good communicator is really helpful. Like, when you're doing silhouettes, how much of the silhouette comes from your
like direction
exactly.
It depends, actually. The way I shoot silhouettes is very different depending on how the sky looks and what the model is wearing.
Okay.
Literally, like, those are like probably the two biggest factors that come into the silhouette. So I usually say, like, there's like an option between, you can choose like a more flowy, long flowy, dressy looking thing which has a lot of fabric, or choose something more form-fitting, you know, like a bodysuit or, like, you know, like workout clothes or whatever. And based off of those outfits, I will change the way I do it. So, like, if someone's wearing something long and flowy, and this is when it comes to the growth thing too, you know, because before I'm like, just wear something long and flowy, I don't care. But, you know, then I realized that sometimes something long and flowy and someone's doing like a normal like model pose or whatever,
it's
you know,
not gonna work.
It won't look because like sometimes it's a little too baggy, and in a silhouette it looks like someone has a really fat arm, or someone looks pregnant, you know, it doesn't look, you know, very
as flattering as it could be.
So like when it comes to something like, I'll say long and flowy, right? Someone, if they're doing long and flowy, a lot of dramatic movement, so it looks like there's movement, so it looks like the person has a lot of fabric. So if it looks a little bit unflattering, at least you know that it's because she has a dress on or something like that. Compared to someone who's wearing something more form-fitting and tighter, they can do more static, like more pose like this, more like that, like this, you know. So because everything is form-fitting, everything is very emphasizes the figure more. We do
less
a lot
of
more
motion.
Exactly. We do a lot more profile stuff, a lot more basic posing, but I like to call it wanderlusting.
Okay.
When someone's wearing a long flowy dress, it's more of a wanderlust sort of feel, like you're walking in like a dreamscape. Obviously, we're like in the middle of like a park or something. But they can just walk around like they're in their own element. Like I try to create a story, you know, if they're like, you're by yourself, you know. So I did something real. I forgot who it was with. I think it was with because I was in Austin back in November, and I was shooting with my friend Gabby.
Okay.
And I told her we were doing this pose because she was wearing, you know, something more form-fitting, right?
Yeah.
So a pose where she was sitting like on her knees, like with a flower in her hand, right? And I go, oh, we're going to pretend that you're sitting on this cliff waiting for your husband to come home from the war.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or something like that. And so, but then for me, I don't know about anyone else, but for me, when I was editing, I felt like I can capture that sorrow, you know?
No, exactly.
Just holding that flower, like, it's like more melancholy or anything. But then there's other people like, oh, you're by yourself, you just won, or you just got into school somewhere, like you're really happy and you're just excited, so you're just like flowing your dress around or whatever.
So when you're giving direction as a photographer, is it more so I want you to move your arm up here, or is it more so I want you to feel like this and show me how?
Feel. It's definitely like, because I like to create my images more. And this is again with the whole growing thing. Before I'm like, I had no idea what I was doing.
as all of us, yeah.
But then now it's more like I want to capture something realistically, a realistic fantasy.
Okay.
Is what I'm trying to capture. So like it's real enough to where you can feel like you can be that person in the picture, but fantasy where the location looks very dreamy, like, oh, this place actually exists, or those stars, or those clouds look amazing. Like, this is real, but is it real?
Yeah, but is it like when someone has to ask whether or not it's real? I think you've done your job. You know?
Oh yeah.
Because
that's for sure.
As long as people aren't saying, oh, like that's ridiculously fake, then you're fine. If people are like, I don't know if that's real or not, that's like you've accomplished your job. You're like, I did a lot of editing, but at the end of the day, it looks great. And even like on some photos, not yours, but some photos that I see like on my Instagram feed that they are like obviously fake, I still like them because they're good photos. Like you don't have to be the most realistic photographer. And that's something I struggle with for a really long time too, is like, I didn't want to do composites because I was like, no, that's not what the natural photo looks like. I want the natural. I don't want to fake it like Photoshop. No one likes Photoshop, right? Like, that's dumb. And then I started getting into Photoshop, and I'm like, well, I can create a lot more with Photoshop now.
I really like when you use Photoshop, like, because I've noticed like one theme with your pictures is she's the model is centered, right? And then there's like stuff
coming at her,
and I actually love that.
I love that too.
There was like one picture, I think it was a shoot you did a while ago, and it was a girl like on the bed like reaching out. Like,
I know it's about the rose petals.
And you re-edited it to have the rose petals. I was like, what? This is awesome.
I know, and so like. And this is something really funny too, is like in journalism school, one of my professors was telling me, when you learn something new, you're just going to overdo it beyond compare, and then you're going to just like have it in your toolbox for when you want to do something with it.
Yeah.
And I think like when I first experimented with that, I was like, oh my God, this is so freaking cool. I can like add depth, like, because this image, like this beautiful girl was reaching out in lingerie. It was like a kind of boudoir shoot, but I was like, this is missing something, you know, like there has to be something. There's all this white space that doesn't look good, and I'm like, what can I add here? And I'm like, well, okay, she has like the red stuff on, like can we get these kind of like Valentine-y vibes? I'm just gonna add some roses in here, and that photo did really well. People really liked it.
I felt like it did really well. Yeah, like I actually personally like if we weren't friends, I'd still be like, wow.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to be friends with that guy.
No, I was really happy with how that photo came out, and then because of that, I was like, okay, I learned how to do the most basic version of this. Let me add on to that. Instead of just like blurring something, I would add motion to it, so it looked like it would be falling or coming towards them.
Yeah.
So it's like you learn certain things, you start certain things, and then you grow off of that, so that skill set becomes better and better. And I think like as I've gone along, it definitely has. I think the most recent one I think was like the one with like the candy and chocolate, like the more Christmassy coffee stuff.
Yeah.
And I really liked that one because it was very Starbucksy. It was like we got all like this. It was very like thematic. I liked that as well.
I like the one where I think the girl was like in the library or something. Or she was
that one with the books. Yeah, dude, I love
that one.
I love that one because the book was like it was like how not to be creepy or something like that. And I was laughing so hard at the book title. I was like, we need a photo of this book.
That's awesome. Storytelling.
With actual books.
Yeah, it's important.
It is very important. And it's very interesting to see how how often do you go out on a shoot and you know exactly the shot you want to get versus I'm going to shoot with this person and we'll kind of go along as it happens.
It depends.
Okay.
Yeah, it depends because sometimes I go into a shoot without any sorry for the long pause. Like without any idea of what to do. But that could be for different circumstances. Like it was a model reached out to me and they had a concept they wanted to try out, and I was like, okay, that sounds like a cool concept. I'm down to try it. Or, you know, actually that's mostly when it is like that. Okay. It's usually like, I don't really know what's gonna happen, but you know what, we're gonna do it. Yeah. There's always like a certain look that I have in my mind that I want to capture. But I usually don't get it because it's very specific, you know? But there was one time where I did that and I actually got the perfect picture that I've always wanted to capture. Granted, it didn't do well engagement-wise on Instagram.
Well, Instagram is Instagram.
It's fine. Yeah. Like, I don't mind. But, like, I was happy to get the shot.
Yeah.
But when there's, like, a concept that I really want to do and I reach out to someone and I pick the location and everything, that's, like, way different. Yeah. And I'm more like... Yeah, I know exactly what I want to get. I know because I already scouted the location. I found like the perfect person to do it with. This is the outfit I would like you to wear, and then we can create something. You know.
Would you say that you get better photos when that happens?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, like definitely. Like I'm not trying to hate on people who reach out to me.
No, yeah.
Like I'm happy.
100%.
Yeah, like I'm grateful that that people want to work with me.
Yeah.
But like there's the cellular. There.
You're good.
But yeah, there's when it comes to people reaching out to me wanting to shoot with me, I don't have as much
control over the situation. Yeah,
exactly. No, then my creativity isn't as high either. It sounds bad, but like
no, exactly. It's like when you relinquish control to a potential client, like you know, like you want the client to be happy at the end of the day, which is 100% fine, and you are a capable photographer who are making, like, you can do other styles, not just silhouettes and whatnot. And even when you do silhouettes, you don't have to do your specific style. Like, as long as the person paying you is fine, that's what really matters. And it's really funny too, because to just kind of caveat off of there, I get quite a bit of client inquiries, and they're like, hey, can you shoot this? I don't really see it on your Instagram feed, but like, can you do that? I'm like, yeah, I do that all the time. I just don't put it on my feed because like my feed is like my very like creative. This is like the stuff I'm super proud of.
That's exactly what happened with me too. So.
And it's really interesting because people just assume that like that's all you shoot. I'm like, no, I shoot weddings. I do this. Like, here's my website. This is legit. Like, I have different categories. You just see what I want you to see because that's what I worked really hard on.
Yeah. No, I get that. Like, that's what happened with me too. Like, my friend was like, oh, yeah, so like your Instagram, like, do you do like other things? I'm like, yeah, I've done maternity shoots, I've done couple shoots, I've shot, like, I did a video like for a wedding and stuff, but like my Instagram, it's so like, this is the aesthetic I want to follow.
Exactly.
I do more than that, but it's also like, yeah, Instagram's more of a creative outlet than anything.
I would wholeheartedly agree with that. Speaking of creative outlet and going back to a little bit of growing, we were talking about today and before how you went from like straight silhouettes to getting more of like that side silhouette, so there's a little bit of light hitting onto that. Yeah. Why are you doing that? Do you think it's like the next evolution? Like, what brought that on?
So it's like a few things actually. So when I first started silhouettes, I was very inspired by Brian Adamsey.
Okay.
Brian Castillo, right, and his wife. And like the way they shot. And when he shoots his silhouettes, some of them are like pitch black dark, but a lot of them are very the majority of them have a little bit, you can see a little bit of like her in
detail,
there. Yeah. But with me, for me, I had the issue of gear. Now, before gear doesn't make the person, gear isn't important. Okay, I agree. I shot with a Sony a6000 and a kit lens for a whole year.
And all of your stuff was incredible. And like when I realized you were shooting with that, I was like, that's just like more props to you for shooting with a kit lens. Like, I was like, dude, you can get legit stuff out of this.
Yeah, like the kit lens, it's not the sharpest lens, but if you know how to use it, it'll work for you. You know? Like,
no, exactly. Like, if you're a talented photographer who knows how to use the tools, you are going to get good shots no matter what. Like, this is this has come up on like some of my live interview stuff and whatnot, and when people are like, oh, you have a nice camera, that's why you're getting good photos, it's like, no, I know what I'm doing, and this is like years of like learning. This is why I know what I'm doing. That's like going up to like a Michelin star 5-star guy and being like, oh yeah, this is so good, what spatula did you use? It's like, no, it's like, it's not my cooking equipment. Like, that's the one that really, no, it's like, it's the thing that is you know how ingredients work, how they melt in your mouth. Like it's all like your knowledge of like how everything comes together to make the final product.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's how I totally agree with that, because like I literally did that. My first, you go from January of 2000 and not even like November of 2017 up until I want to say September of 2018. That whole time span, I only shot with my A6000, which is like a basic entry-level crop sensor camera from Sony, and the kit lens, which is a 16-50, 3.5 to 5.6. So at 50 millimeters, you're shooting at 5.6,
which means you need a lot of that. You need to bump up that ISO.
Exactly, and then the sensor on the 6000. The dynamic range isn't as high as like, you know,
the more modern sensors. Well,
even compared to like a 63 or 6500, it's still a basic sensor.
It is.
So my issue was, I'm like, okay, well, I can't bring in, because I've always wanted to have a little bit of like detail. I didn't want them always to be complete. I mean, I'm happy with them to be completely black, you know, but like having a little bit of detail, having a little bit of skin texture, you know, it adds more elements to the picture instead of just a. Because like
straight black.
It's that straight black. Because a lot of those silhouette photographers that I know on Instagram are it's not their image. Yeah, it's a composite. They take a silhouette that they get off a stock image and then they add to it, and it's beautiful. But like I didn't want my pictures to look like that. I wanted them to have a little more realism in them. So just a little bit of skin texture, a little bit of light here would look nice. However, I'm shooting at very like low light times during the day.
Well, you're shooting literally like at sunset, after sunset. You're shooting like at golden hour, not even golden hour. You're shooting at like blue hour and afterwards, and then just bumping it up in post. Exactly. Like when I went to your meetup about like sunset silhouettes, I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. And then like I'd never shot silhouettes before, and I was like, all right, I gotta do this because Corin's here, and I wanna try this out. So I got quite a few shots, and it was like. It was really interesting too, because like I never I never have my subject black, right? Because I'm a portrait photographer. You want that face and I'm like, okay, so I had to like completely disregard everything I'd learned and just like keep the subject black. But even then, it was like really interesting to see like how much information your camera retains even when your subject is black, because you can still get a decent amount of detail, like. And even when like the sun was like completely set, like it was pitch black, I still got some like very recoverable shots that when you just like boost them a little bit in Lightroom, like you have all these like beautiful sunset colors still. And I'm like, oh my god, like if I was just looking at the sun, like the sky, I would have been like, yeah, this is not a good photo. But you can do quite a bit in Photoshop.
That's
it was just your exposure settings are totally different for silhouettes, and I was like, wow, I need to learn.
No, that's the thing, like, and that's why I had a lot of limitations with my camera too, because like I'm shooting at the largest aperture I was shooting at was 3.5,
which is already letting in no light.
Exactly. And I'm just like, okay, well, I can't do too much. So, but then also with that, I had to be very specific on where the sun was.
Yes.
Because if the sun was too high, it would be too overexposed. If the sun was too low, well, everything would be gone.
Yeah.
And so like I had to like make sure that I knew where the sun was, and then just shoot off as many pictures as I could until the sun hit the horizon. Change my settings by, dropping the shutter a little bit and then bumping the ISO. I never bumped the ISO above
400.
400.
I think you were telling me about that a while ago, and I was like, 400 is a very respectable amount. Like you won't have that much grain in it, and it's very usable. But then
I had a shot at 800 once, and I couldn't use it. Like, I'm like, it's 800, but at the same time, it's like...
When you're bringing it back that much, like, like...
you bump the exposure and you pick up the shadows, it's just...
it's just gone. Like, it doesn't... Like, even, like, on my full frame camera, depending on the situations, no matter what ISO I'm shooting at, like if I'm bringing it up, if I'm trying to recover something that should not really be recovered, it's not going to look good, no matter what the ISO was. Like low light has definitely gotten a lot further along.
Like
but there's still
cameras.
but there's still certain situations where you're like, I should not be shooting this with the equipment I have right now. Like I need some sort of light. And that's just, it's really funny how that turns out.
Which is crazy now, because when I was shooting with Rebecca, which is one of our friends, shout out to Rebecca, we went down to a lake, right? And one of my last pictures that we took of when like the sun was starting to go down was one of the hair flip picture, right? And I had for whatever reason, I usually shoot in manual because I have more control and everything, right? But I was shooting aperture priority for some reason. And my aperture was at 1.4 because I was shooting on the Sigma, and for whatever reason the ISO was at 1600.
Oh my God.
And when I looked at it, I'm like, I can't use these. I go into post, no grain.
Right?
There was no grain. I was like, are you serious?
I know,
and then
it's insane.
I added like in the split toning and I added like colors and stuff, and it looked
incredible.
I was like, what?
No, the dynamic. No, dude, you can push the A7 III to like 3200 and still have almost no grain whatsoever. It's like when you start getting to like 64, you're gonna have like a little bit of grain. But before 64, like you're pretty much golden. It's insane. Well, it also helps you were shooting with a 1.4. Like you're letting a lot of light.
Letting a lot of light.
That's like 1600, totally recoverable.
It was awesome too, because I was shooting at, I think, because my shutter was pretty high because I wanted to capture like a sharp hair flip. I think that's why my ISO was so high when I think about it. I'm like, oh, that's probably why.
Got that freeze motion there,
I think I was like 3200. Well, that makes sense now. But like just the fact that I'm shooting at 1600 now and there's no grain compared to when I was shooting with my A6000.
It makes a huge difference.
So like,
but you have to work your way up to that. Like you can't just start there, you know? Like you work up, and it's very interesting too, because like I had a couple of friends who were like, okay, I just want to like learn Photoshop. I'm like, that's great and all, but you should get the basics down in Lightroom first. Understand how to use your camera, edit it from there, see how files work, see how color works, see how lighting works, and then get more creative with Photoshop. And they're like, nah, I just want to do Photoshop. And then they would ask me all these like really basic questions like, hey, how do I bring down the highlights? I'm like, there's a slider for that. Like you literally just do that, and it's like these people want to learn to run before they can walk, and it's like, no, you gotta start where everyone else starts and move up.
I was like that. That's why I'm laughing.
I
want to learn Photoshop.
I totally get that. So going back to the initial question,
so basically just I've always wanted to do a more like to have a silhouette but with a little bit of texture and stuff, but I wasn't able to because of my gear. But that was always like kind of like the look I was going for, because when it's still a little bit dark, it's more like that mystery, like you can see her, but you can't, you can see what she's doing, but what's the emotion behind it? Why is it like that? And then when you see a little bit of the skin texture, it feels more real, it feels more relatable, like this person is a real person. It's not some drag and drop stock image you can get off of Adobe stock or whatever. So it's like you can actually see that this is a real person, but it's a little darker to add more mood, because I love dark moods.
So how much do you think that plays into adding to like the image, like versus a completely black silhouette versus a little bit of light? How much of an impact do you think that has?
I think it comes down to one being the composition of the shot just looks a bit better. So from a more like outside of the storytelling range, it's like the idea of playing with shadows and playing with highlights. Well, she has a little bit of highlights and a little bit of shadows, so you get that kind of feeling of, oh, like this is actually pleasant to look at, not just a black blob, but like, oh, this is a real person. Yeah, but two, also I think it also adds to the drama of it being a real person,
Do you think you can do better storytelling with that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I think so, because sometimes you can get a glimpse of the person's face. Sometimes she might be smiling, and I say she because I haven't worked with.
That is a good point. I
don't want to make it sound like this is 2019, blah blah blah. But the only guy I've ever worked with was you.
That is true.
And my brother. So that's why it naturally comes out as she.
I did not think about that.
But
that is really funny.
Because most male
I
models
feel even
don't
more
reach out.
honored now. That's also true.
But that's the thing though. But so let's say like if you look at the model, we'll say the model, right? Like okay, we'll just say she. It's just a lot easier than that.
Yeah.
They might have like a small like smile on their face or a smirk. You know, that will elicit a reaction,
like a little bit more versus being completely black. You can see
a little bit like that. Like sometimes they're just looking at the camera. You can see that the eye is staring at you. You know.
Going back to you were saying in Austin, Texas, you took this photo with the rose. That she was facing the side, so you could actually, like, the rose itself was silhouetted as well? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, but there was a couple pictures where I took where I kept her, like, a bit... Because those actually... My trip to Austin, it was a nice trip. I always wanted to visit Austin, but that was just the antithesis of the kind of sky you want for a shoot. Like, honestly, you could not have picked a worse time to shoot silhouettes. Honestly.
Like, was there just, like, no clouds? Sunlight was bad?
No, it was overcast.
Oh.
It was overcast. Like, and not some... Like, here's the thing. Like, I can tell, like, if it's a small overcast here, I'm like, oh, it's overcasted. But it's not a heavy overcast.
Yeah, we can still work with that.
Yeah, the sun will drop below. It'll still illuminate like crazy.
Yeah.
Like when I was shooting with Rebecca, that weekend, that sky was a bit overcasted.
Yeah.
And I was a little worried, but I'm like, no, this is going to turn out great.
Then the sun peeked through and
boom, amazing. This was one of those overcasts where it's going to rain heavy and all hell's going to break loose. It was the worst. Like those are that's the complete opposite of what you want to do for silhouettes. So I had to learn a lot of new techniques. But what I did with her, what I changed was I made the focus, because usually when I'm doing a silhouette, the focal point is the model, but I focus a lot on the sky.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So like, because the sky...
it's just grandiose and beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Here I kept the focus on her. So the holding of the rose.
It's much more like portrait-esque.
Exactly.
Of you. Yeah.
So that's the change that I did for that.
And then, so then this is another thing. I know that you want to buy, you already bought, you're going to be buying the Sigma 35 1.4.
I have not, no, I'm doing it. I've changed my mind a ton. I know it's pissing you off. But I am now fully set on getting the 35 1.4.
Okay.
For sure.
So you like the wider angles. You've always liked the wider angles.
I love my wide angles. I saw your latest video.
I know, yeah.
I'm not a fan of wide angles.
I'm not.
laughing.
Like, yeah, I know. Like, Corbin's like, I love this. Like, I love my 35. Don't get me wrong. When I first got it, I was like, all right, this is super cool. It's a great focal length. I don't know how often I'm going to use it, but it's an important focal length to have. And then when I'm getting more, like, I use my 35 for almost every single one of those shots where stuff is coming in, just because I have like more frame to work with, and like because of like the wide angle distortion, you can get like that very cool perspective that you just don't get on 85, because the 85 is so flattering and so realistic that you don't get this like this stuff coming, like this 3D effect popping. So I like my 35 for that kind of stuff, and I like my 35 like when I'm in closed situations, like if I'm in a coffee shop and we have to be a little bit more discreet. I can't take a 5 foot back and take shots with my 85, because then people are going to be like, you can't shoot here, what the hell are you doing? Like, I'm drinking coffee here. But if you just like, you just pull out the 35, you're like, all right, I can get you sitting here, I'm sitting here, it's fine, we can make some magic happen. But yeah, while I was talking about that, like 35 is the widest I will go. I don't like my 28 for portraits, just because it's too wide. But I know you like your wider angles, and obviously because of the stuff you want to do, like, you have to have that wider angle. But then here's like, I know so many people who use the 35 for like more up close portraits and like full bodies, but how often does like how big do you want your model to be in the photo? Like, it's more so your model is like a little and then sky.
See, I actually prefer to have my model looking small. And then having just this,
because it gives this massive, it makes the viewer feel like this is this beautiful big world that we're a part of, and I really like that.
That's exactly what I'm going for. Like, I like, it's like, so I try to vary it, you know?
No, yeah, you definitely have different things, but
I do have a more of a soft spot for so like I'm shooting wide, right? Because then I'm shooting when I was doing when I first started off with my A6000 and the kit lens. So I'm shooting all my pictures are actually shot at 16.
Okay.
Which converted is like 24.
Yeah.
I was shooting pretty much with a 24.
Yeah.
And I was like far away, and I just love that look of just a small person with this
massive,
vast sky.
It makes you feel small, and it makes the world feel big, and it's a very interesting, and I see that a lot more on like interesting like travel like Instagram pages, stuff like that. It's like because it's all about the world, right? Like it's like, oh, you're like this wonderful person experiencing the world versus, hey, I'm just a beautiful person, you know? Like, and it like that, and like I'm definitely the one that takes the beautiful person shots. Yeah. But you're like just. It makes you appreciate the world, and I love that.
Oh man!
And
that's the focus more. It's like just to see this, like it's nice to have a focal point, which is the person to like, you know.
No, I always think like you'd be a very talented landscape photographer.
It actually started off as landscape, by the way. Like it all started. My brother got into my picture. And that's how Silhouette started, and that worked. But I was a landscape photographer.
No, exactly. But like I've always been like the reason why I like portraits is because people add a nice it just adds a nice element into the photo. Like a photo is always going to be better if there's a person in the shot. And if I were to take more like landscape photos, I would definitely want something more like what you're doing, like little person, big landscape. Because like sure, the big landscape's gonna look great. But that little person just adds that little focal point where it makes you think a little bit harder.
Exactly.
I really like that.
It does give a little like something special to the shot where you can have this large landscape. It's nice to look at.
Exactly.
And when you have someone there to put it into perspective,
it's just like
it makes it so much better.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen like pictures of people going to Antelope Canyon up in Page, right? And I've been there, and it's actually. It's a bit cramped.
Oh, it is 100% cramped.
But then you have these pictures on Instagram that make these canyons are huge and the person's so small.
Yeah.
Because when I wanted to go to Antelope Canyon, I was like, oh, this is kind of disappointing.
Yeah.
But I'm like, oh wait, it's actually, you know, I can see why they do it.
Exactly.
You know, like from a photography perspective.
And yeah, it's been really interesting because a lot more landscapes, like a lot more of these like special places on these tourist attractions are becoming more and more popular because of Instagram. Like if you went to Antelope Canyon 3-4 years ago, you'd be like one of 10 people visiting that day. Yeah. But now because everyone's like, oh, I need that Instagram photo. There are like hundreds of people there. You might not necessarily get that photo because there's so many people that are going there, and it's just like that kind of sucks. Like
there's definitely like those things that I noticed with like photographers and like big Instagram feature pages is they have like basically they have like themes, you know, like especially because when I went to Japan back in March of last year, right, and that was during the cherry blossoms. See, I was there and it was amazing, but every Instagram famous photographer was there taking pictures of the cherry blossoms.
Of course they were,
and then all the big feature pages were featuring cherry blossoms
because it was in season. And like, to be fair, that is so gorgeous. I love it. And I like whenever they were on my feed, I was just like, I love this. I want to go to Japan so much.
It was amazing.
But I think like that's kind of I totally get that, but because that's more of a seasonal, very quick event, I understand why so many people were there. But you know, like something like the Grand Canyon that's like open all year, and then like people are still like,
and then Yosemite too. Like, a lot of people go to Yosemite because like, they had people go to Yosemite. And then even Canada, like the Banff National...
Oh my god, I know.
Like, forest or...
I was there. I was in Banff in 2014. 2015.
So when we weren't friends.
Before we knew each other. Before I was even a photographer. I had just gotten my iPhone 6 Plus, the first ever big iPhone, and I was like, dude, I'm going to take so many freaking photos on this phone. So we went up to Banff, and like I didn't go to like it because of when I went. I think it was like October, so nothing was frozen, like nothing was snowing yet. But I also was there with family friends, and we weren't there for the purpose of taking photos. I just like got some photos while we were there. It was just absolutely beautiful. And then now that I'm a photographer and I'm seeing like what Peter McKinnon does and whatnot, I'm just like, oh my god, Banff is so nice. But then again, it's like more and more people are going to want to go there. But that's an interesting thing. I was going to be talking about this in a separate YouTube video, how these people, like these influencers, they will and I think certain influencers, very influential. Most influencers that you see on Instagram, not influential. Yeah. Super dumb. They're just trying to sell you some random, poop tea.
There are those who you like Sam Colder.
Yeah,
I love Sam Colder.
Exactly.
And Chelsea Kauai.
Yeah.
Great.
It's just great. But something like Peter McKinnon, like on one of his short film that he did, he partnered with like Travel Alberta or like something travel related, which made 100% sense. I'm like, okay, he's kind of selling out, but at the same time, he's showing this beautiful part of Canada that's going to be bringing in lots of money because people are like, oh my god, we need to go there. This is beautiful. We can take dope video, we can take dope photo, and we can show it to the world because this looks great. And that's something that you wouldn't have otherwise done had you not seen that, had you not know who Peter McKinnon was, because you would have no idea how beautiful Banff was. So that is like a perfect collaboration right there. Yeah. Because they're like, here's some money, go do your thing. People will be flocking because people love your thing, and people had no idea this existed beforehand.
Smart investments.
Yeah, no, it's 100% smart, and it's very interesting to see like more and more like these travel vloggers, these travel like bloggers, like these travel Instagrammers. More and more people want to travel to certain places based off of the content they can kind of get, and it's really interesting to see how that's affecting tourism.
Yeah, oh for sure. Like before, it's like, I have not heard of anyone wanting to visit Bali. Oh, yeah. And now everyone's in Bali. It's like, or even with Machu Picchu. I've been to Peru twice. I didn't go to Machu Picchu because I was there for a medical internship, but I've never went. But then all of a sudden, Instagram pops up. This is back in like 2015, 2014. And now everyone's going to Machu Picchu.
We gotta get that photo.
Yeah, it's like Machu Picchu this, Machu Picchu that. And then even like people going to San Francisco. For the Golden State Bridge. Yeah, it's just the same angle, but you get that shot.
You just like and it's really interesting to see how people are deciding where they're traveling. I will say like because I grew up in Hong Kong, right? So like I always knew that Bali was like kind of that place, but I didn't know to the extent as it was now. Like this like I knew like a lot of Asians would travel there because it's like a nice holiday to go to. But
like in Asia.
Exactly. But I had no idea that it would be like this big a deal. And then you have like people like Sam Colder go there, and then you're like, oh my god, this tropical paradise, let's go there.
This is no nice.
It's really interesting to see how people have that. You're like, oh, that's a place of the world that I've never even thought of going to before, and now
it's nice to see though, you know.
No, it definitely is, and it's like, especially if you don't have the means or you're actually never going to travel there, you get to like experience a little bit what that part of the world is like. Yeah. So it does open your mind a little bit, and you can see something cool about it. I will say that when these beautiful Instagram bloggers and travelers are going there, they're not showing what the country is really like.
Exactly. Yeah, but, or even just the 9-hour flights, 15-hour flights. But
they're showing the best parts and the very expensive hotel they're staying in.
Yes.
But you do still get to experience some of that culture, and it's really cool to see how that works out.
Yeah, Instagram is cool, but then Instagram can be sometimes.
Yeah, Instagram is...
it's a blessing and a curse.
It really is.
This is a good segue into Instagram.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, no, just like social media addiction. I definitely have a problem.
Me too. I think once I pull up Instagram, here's the thing. Before I was not pulling up Instagram until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Okay. Because if I knew that if I pulled up Instagram, my productivity at work would be cut in half. But lately, I've been going on at like 1, and I'm like, I can't work anymore. My addiction is kicking in, and I'm just like,
I mean, at least you have some self-restraint. Like, the first thing I look at when I wake up, Instagram. And then I'll be on Instagram for like the next 2 hours, and then I'll like take a break for lunch, and then, because I know like when my favorite photographers are posting, right? So I'm seeing like a couple of photographers, especially the more international ones, are posting at like 7 a.m. my time, see all of them. And then I know like a couple like California photographers post at like noon, so I'll see all of them. And then a couple other people will post at 5, and then a couple other people will post at like 9 or 10. So I'm on Instagram quite a bit, and it was really scary. Like during some of my prime days, I was like literally sending screenshots because they came out with that feature in the update to see how much screen time you're actually using on Instagram. And in this week, I was genuinely scared because like it'd be between 4 and 6.5 hours of screen time on Instagram. That's like the majority of the time that I'm awake as a functioning human being. Like, I have a massive problem with Instagram.
4 to 6 hours?
Yeah, a day.
Wow.
And Corman's like, oh my god, you have a problem. I'm I know.
I'm just like...
You're like, what do you do?
Well, that's a lot.
It is a lot.
Like, in a week.
No, per day.
Per day?
Per day. That was the average per day.
Oh, I thought it was in a week.
No.
That's a lot in a week, but per day?
Per day. Like,
wow.
I have a genuine problem. Well, the thing is, like...
You have a business.
I do have a business, and a lot of people don't email me, they DM me. So I have to respond on Instagram. Yeah. And I've found myself doing more DMs on Instagram than I am text messaging or emailing. Like... Even my friends now, they don't text me, they DM me because they know I'm on Instagram. Mm-hmm. And it's just really funny, like Instagram has become my default texting application as well because everyone just messaged me there. And it's just easier to share content too. If someone's like, hey, I want to do a shoot like this, they just like forward me the photo they have like as a concept. And I'm like, oh, that's super easy. Like, I can definitely do that kind of thing, and then you go from there. And then when it gets more serious, like, here's my email address, I'll have you sign contracts, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. But most of the people are hitting me out on Instagram. Like, I'm getting, like, wedding inquisitions on Instagram. Like, it's, right? It's really interesting to see how these, like, more higher profile things that people are willing to pay money for are happening in the DMs. And then it transfers over to more traditional forms of communication, which is really interesting.
Instagram has changed a lot of things.
No, it definitely has. It definitely has. But I will say, what I was going to say, this problem of so many people seeing, and I have this problem, like, you get bummed out when you're seeing all these amazing artists post amazing photos, and you're like, what am I doing? You know, like, it really bums you out, I will say. And especially, like, because I have this clear addiction to Instagram. Mm-hmm. It's gotten better, I will say. Like, I think I'm down to like 2.5 hours a day now instead of like 4 to 6.
That's reasonable.
It's still too much for what it is, but it's better, and I'm trying to be better about that. And I've noticed, especially when I'm hanging out with friends, I don't need to be on my phone as much, which I greatly appreciate. But this issue of seeing such good content all the time, because I'm only following talented photographers, right?
You're not
like,
just following random.
I'm not following random people. Like, my photography account is not for friends, it's for work, you know, like, it's for photographers that I care about, that I want to see their content, that I want to be inspired by. Mm-hmm. It's not, you know, Bob from high school. So I'm not seeing any of that content on my photography page. When I go to my personal Insta, there's a little bit more of it, but I still keep it relatively clean because I like a certain kind of following. But it kind of starts distorting the way you see the world, because you're like, oh, I think every female on planet Earth is like this beautiful Instagram model. I think every place on planet Earth looks like this. And it's just like
in luxury.
Yeah, exactly. And you start to get this distortion about what the world actually looks like and what people actually look like, and it starts to, like, for me anyway, it like really is like, wow, like, my photos aren't this good. Like, these guys getting hundreds of thousands of likes, and then, you know, it's not about the likes, it's not about the interaction. But at the same time, it's like when you pour 6 hours into an edit and 50 people see it, you're like, that kind of sucks.
No, I totally get you. Like, I'm not trying to be that guy or anything, but, you know, last 4 pictures that I posted on Instagram have, like,
not been... and I've noticed that. I don't know if the algorithm has changed completely again, but interaction, I would say, like, based off of even, like, certain big creators have been bigger. It's been really interesting. Just this is not, like, based in fact or anything, but what I noticed with my own 2 eyes is that, like, people under 50K who are usually getting, I don't know, like 5,000 likes ish suddenly took a hit, and they were getting about like 3,500 likes.
See, I've noticed that too, because there's one photographer that I really like. He's around 89,000, and he was getting like close to 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 likes per picture. But now recently, because he even posted onto his story about the engagement, I looked at his last few pictures. 800.
And it's just like
that's like less than 1%.
Yeah, 1%. But, like, again, it makes you wonder, like, how much of this is being, like, bot following, how much of this is bot likes. But they're, like, even for people who I'm, like, fairly certain they don't do it too much, like, I know what their engagement is, they took a hit. But what I also noticed is that these massive creators, people with, like, 1 million plus, were getting much more engagement than usual. Like, someone like Brandon Wolfel, right? If you go, like, 2-3 weeks back, he was averaging between, like, 150 and 180. And then, like, all of his recent posts suddenly were at, like, 240.
Oh, okay.
And like 1,000, 100,000.
Oh yeah, I was assuming it was in the 240,000.
Yeah, exactly.
range.
So like that's a pretty drastic increase over a period of like 2 weeks. Like he didn't go up another 2 million followers. He gains his usual amount of followers, but I think because of the algorithm this time around, it's favoring these more big accounts with that initial interaction. And when you have 1 million plus followers, you're going to be getting that massive wave of interaction right off the bat, which is really interesting. So it's showing those photos that are getting more likes to more people because, it really sucks for the little creators like us. Like it's like, it is what it is.
It is what it is.
But you got to just kind of keep rolling with the punches and hoping sooner or later something great comes along. You never know when like you're gonna pop off, you know? Like you just need to lay the groundwork, keep your head down and keep doing it, and hopefully eventually, if people will start noticing. And that's the thing. I think it was like Mango Street who was like, good content doesn't stay hidden for long, because sooner or later people are going to be like, this is good. They're going to share it with someone. They're going to like, this dude is really powerful. Like I like his stuff. And people are eventually going to see it. So you just got to keep going. It sucks, but eventually it's going to happen.
You got to keep going because you'll never know if you give up. And you should just keep going and keep posting and stuff.
Yeah.
But don't make it like the world.
Yeah, it's not. The real world is much more important, and I think it's those relationships that you make that are much more important. Like you and I met off of Instagram.
Yeah, no, it's
crazy. And now we have this amazing friendship, and it's incredible. And now we're doing a podcast together in my room. Like how crazy is that? I love that. I absolutely love that.
This is where it all.
This is where the magic happens. This I don't know. This little 30 square feet of beauty. Gotta love it.
Yeah.
Anyway, guys, I think that is going to be the conclusion to this first podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed. I had a blast with Corwin.
That was fun.
Always. It was fun. It genuinely was fun.
There wasn't a theme, and I liked it.
Oh, yeah. We kind of just...
tangents, but I think it was a lot of good information.
Yeah, we just kind of have our usual conversation, except this time it's recorded. So, you know.
That's actually true. It's usually how it is. Yeah. When we hang out, we should talk about non-photography stuff maybe next time.
Yeah, well,
if you'd want to have me back.
Of course I want to have you back. This is why I love this. All right, love you guys. Peace.
Bye.